government assistance was made for white people. The fact that the programs were made in like 1935, like in the 1930s, says it all right there, given the fact that black people were not even considered people under the law at that time. But I've really been doing some more research and reading, and I read an article and they were talking about how like up until like the 60s or 70s, black people really could not qualify for government assistance. And that is absolutely disheartening, being that now it hasn't even been 100 years later that black people are now the face of all racial stereotypes regarding government assistance in Section 8. Meanwhile, these same programs were never even made for us. Meanwhile, black people had to jump through hoops to get qualified. Meanwhile, people talk about black fathers not being in the home, and these same government institutions were not wanting the men to be there. Like, what the fuck?
In Dr. Amos Wilson's book, Blueprint for Black Power, how many of you have Blueprint for Black Power? Blueprint for Black Power by Dr. Amos Wilson. That book should be in every black home. In that particular book on page, I believe it was 34 or 36, he lists all of the handouts that whites have been given from 1675 to 1975. White people have been given handouts for 300 years plus. All right, and so from 1683 to 1889, the federal government passed acts and ordinances that gave lands to whites. Specifically, the Homestead Act, which was passed in 1862, it granted settlers 160-acre tracts of federal lands without charges. Over 250 acres of public lands were transferred almost exclusively to whites in the most important land program in American history. In the book, The Hidden Cost of Being African American by Thomas Shapiro, we learned that over 1 million whites today still live off of the wealth that they incurred from the Homestead Act alone. From 1920 to 1975, our federal government, they passed the Mineral Leasing Act, which authorized the federal government to lease public land for the exploration of gas, oil, and other minerals. In 1926, they passed the Federal Air Commerce Act, where they gave licenses to qualified aviators. So you wonder why we don't have black-owned airlines. Your government made sure we didn't have black-owned airlines. All right, and the Federal Communication Commission, they issued the first licenses for television broadcast stations, and no grants were made to Negroes. See, this is Dr. Amos Wilson's language. He says Negroes until token awards in the late 1960s and 1980s. So, family, you wonder why we don't have black-owned television networks, because your government designed it to be that way. And so Dr. Amos Wilson's list does not include the New Deal policies that were passed under the Roosevelt administration, right? I'm talking about the FHA loans and the VA loans, which created a white middle class. All right? And so while they were creating a white middle class, we were confined to ghettos. We were redlined and confined to ghettos. Ghettos are a government creation. And so this government has been complicit in putting us at the bottom.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Poor white Americans are shocked right now. They thought black people were the ones always suffering on welfare. But the truth is turning the world upside down. Guys, let's watch the clip. Remember, the credit goes to the direct owner of the video. I'll be back.
You want to talk about white privilege? I was born dirt poor. Roaches in our food, mattresses on the floor, eviction notices taped to the doors, kind of poor. My parents, their side hustle was beating me and my siblings bloody. I missed more meals than I can count. When we did eat, it was ramen, canned foods, or whatever we could steal from the gas station. There were 8 of us kids. Don't come at me like I grew up in some quiet backwoods town either. We weren't hearing deer rifles, we were hearing 9mm and Glocks. rocks on a nightly basis. Not because we were hunting, because we were dodging stray bullets in the inner city. I had a baby as a teenager, thought maybe I could break the cycle, went to college, flunked out quick. Life was swinging before I even had a chance to plant my feet. Then the military came knocking, promised me structure, a future, and a way out. What I got? Another flavor of hell. Straight out of basic, they shipped me to Afghanistan. 19 years old, couldn't buy a beer back home, but I could carry a rifle, kick in doors, and watch friends die in pieces. I came home to a wife who had cheated on me while I deployed, ended in divorce, missed my baby's first steps, first words, first everything. I got the title Dad, but only for 2 days every other week when the courts allowed me. So I drank, I numbed it out, I drowned it in alcohol and women, hopped from job to job, security, government contracts, even worked with the feds for a minute, but it all fell apart. I ended up homeless, ashamed, alone, and broken. Now, I've been sober for 4 years, been through more therapy than most folks can stomach, read hundreds of books, and here's what I figured out. As bad as I have had it, if I was black, I probably wouldn't have survived it. That ain't an opinion, that's truth. Black Americans make up 13% of the population, but 38% of the prison population. 1 in 3 black boys born today, they're expected to end up behind bars. That ain't by accident, that is policy. That's centuries of systemic racism passed off as justice. The 13th Amendment did not abolish slavery, it rebranded it. It says slavery is legal as punishment for a crime. That's why we got corporations making billions off of prison labor while folks inside earn cents an hour if they're lucky. That clause was written to target black Americans, and it's still doing exactly that. Now I run an organization called West Virginia Fights Back. We feed people, we take care of people. No strings, no red tape, no begging for scraps. We take care of our own because the government won't. My dream? A Fights Back chapter in every damn state. Abolish the prison industrial complex. Burn the cage down. Build something real in its place. Fred Hampton said, you can jail a revolutionary, but you cannot jail the revolution. This is not about shame. This is about responsibility. If you've had the privilege of not being targeted by the system, you've got the duty to help tear it down.
Okay, guys, many poor white Americans grew up with an idea that welfare was a black problem. That's what politicians, media, and stereotype told them. But now, as the economy gets worse, they are realizing they are the ones lining up for food stamp, healthcare, and government aid. Imagine, guys, so lining up just for waiting food, Medicare, and so on. This shows how poor or poverty can touch everyone, guys. Poverty does not care about color of your skin. The might is breaking right now, right in front of their eyes. Guys, imagine just because of their color, they was feeling like poverty cannot reach on them. Let's continue to watch the clip. I'll be back.
So I posted about white folks on food stamps. And one thing I kept seeing was that welfare was created for white people. I knew that it was created during the New Deal, so I did some more research because I didn't really know the whole story, and I thank you guys for responding and helping me learn stuff. So during the Great Depression is when we saw the beginning of things like Social Security, unemployment insurance. But here's the kicker. When Franklin Roosevelt built those programs, he had to make deals with Southern Democrats in Congress, the same folks who were big fans of Jim Crow, to get the support of these racist white Southern politicians The programs were designed to exclude farm workers, domestic workers, jobs held overwhelmingly by Black, Latino, and Indigenous people. So right from the start, Black and brown families were pushed out of benefits so that white people could get them. Then we move forward to the 1960s, and there's this war on poverty. It finally opened up welfare programs more broadly, and that's when food stamps became permanent. Well, permanent, we don't know what Trump's going to do to them, but they lasted a long time. And guess what? The minute more Black and brown families started accessing this help, the politics shifted. Welfare got a new image and a new target. By the 1980s and 90s, with Ronald Reagan and his gang, they pushed the welfare queen myth. That's a racist dog whistle meant to turn public opinion against safety nets by blaming Black women for poverty that white policies created. That's the truth, you guys. So yes, welfare was built for white people, and when others finally got in the door, they tried to burn the house down. If you want to blame the right people, you got to get curious.
Okay, guys, what really shocked them is that a lot of Black people have been moved forward, building businesses, getting education, and finding a way to survive without waiting for the system. Meanwhile, many white families are stuck, angry, and embarrassed to depend on the very welfare programs they once judged others for using. So, guys, I think that you see the reality. White people, they feel like welfare was for Black community, but Black community, they stopped that one since before, because they know the system does not provide for them. They know the system does not accepting them just to be part of the welfare. It's so sad. I'm not happy for them. I'm not happy for what's happening, but this is the reality. We can't escape the reality, guys, because the truth will remain the truth. So let's continue to watch the clip, guys.
I'm coming to y'all annoyed as hell. I'm annoyed because, and this is really not their fault, but every time I have a conversation with a person of color about poverty and about systemic injustice, what do they cite? The culture of poverty, right? The idea developed in the 60s and 70s, let me remind you, that something is inherently wrong with poor and Black people, and that is why they cannot escape poverty, right? And I just need us to investigate that a little bit more. First of all, the 60s is post-segregation, right? This is prime time when we're seeing the development of policy to help rectify generations-long disparities in housing, in healthcare, in the medical care system, in the justice system, right? So why do we think this theory was developed at this time? Who did it benefit for us to believe, and by us I mean people of color, Blacks, Latinos, Indigenous mainly, for us to believe that everything was our fault and that we could not be helped by changing these systems or rectifying these past wrongs, because ultimately something was inherently wrong with us. They were arguing that post segregation, right? So when there's still housing segregation happening, blatant housing segregation and discrimination, blatant school segregation and discrimination, right? They're making this argument even then, and people believe it applies now. So again, let's consider who it benefits for us to believe that and who it lets off of the hook, right? It is very advantageous for the people who are in charge of these systems, people in power, to be able to blame us for the disparities that they have caused, right? And to make it us internalize that we then are the root of these issues, that Black people live in ghettos because Black people have a mindset to live in a ghetto, rather than that Black people live in ghettos because of racist redlining that was employed throughout the 40s, 50s, 60s to separate the funding and development support going into specifically Black neighborhoods. which was legal at the time, right? And so we are making it very easy for people to continue to exploit us by buying into that lie, right? Instead of pointing out a culture of poverty, we need to point out the culture of exploitation, right? If something's wrong with somebody, maybe it's something's wrong with the culture that allowed for people to continue to exploit other human beings, right? And it continues to justify the death and violence towards Black and brown and indigenous people, right? Let's talk about the culture of exploitation of the elites.
This creates confusion and rage. Instead of asking why the system failed them, some poor white Americans starting blaming Black people again, saying things like, why are they doing better than us? Imagine, guys, yourself. So I think that you'll drop your comment in the comment section. It's very, very ridiculous. But the truth is, Black people had to learn survival skills for generations, while some white Americans never thought they would face the same struggle. This is a real lesson about never say never. And also, don't laugh at your friend or at someone else because you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So the system doesn't admit or give access to the Black people. So, but now the things get worse. Guys, let's continue to watch the clip. I'll be back with more commentary.
It's only the 4th day of Black History Month, y'all, and I'm already pissed. Let's talk about this article. This is from Bloomberg, y'all. It will take Black Americans 320 years to catch up to white neighbors. It will take more than 3 centuries for Black Americans to achieve the same quality of life as their white neighbors, after the racial gap widened in more than half the country in the past decade. The 320 years is in rural counties like in Caddo Parish, Louisiana, and in more urban areas like New York and San Francisco, it's around 160 years. Only 48% of U.S. counties reduced the racial gap in the past decade. No U.S. county with a significant Black population has achieved parity, and the 37 that are close to it house just 0.1% of the total U.S. Black population. The study assumes that results for white residents will remain at today's levels, but notes that those estimates are conservative because their conditions are likely to improve over time. So we're seeing the quality of life decreasing for Black people in this country and the quality of life improving for white people in this country, noted. They analyzed 25 metrics related to the quality of life, including rates of poverty and food insecurity, job opportunities, life expectancy, and the incarceration rate across the U.S. from megacities to rural areas. And the report highlights that a number of solutions can be used to help bridge the gap, including affordable housing in mixed income areas, health insurance for U.S. residents without coverage, and the expansion of high-quality early education programs. I'm upset for so many reasons. Obviously, the first is the fact that that gap even exists, period. But also, like, during our month of Black History Month, how could you come so close but be so far? In this article, obviously the article is reporting on what's actually in that results from McKinsey, and I'm going to go and actually read that to try to see what they say. But the fact that slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination, like, how is that not mentioned in the article as the cause for this gap? Like, how can you talk about a symptom but not talk about the cause of the symptom? And it's just so crazy to me because, like, okay, we've made some progress in the sense that, like, for many years, they would have never made an article like this. But now you know what the issue is, and you're not actually doing anything to solve the problem. And to me, that's worse than saying we're just going to ignore it, period. Because you know what's going on, but now what's the next step? Like, let's stop talking about it and let's start actually doing them actions and not just acknowledging the fact that we know that these things will improve people's lives, but actually doing the things to improve people's lives.
Hey guys, here is the deeper truth. For decades, the story in America has been that Black people are lazy, living off welfare, not working hard. That story was never true. It was propaganda. It was pushed to divide people and keep poor whites and poor blacks from uniting against the real problem. A system that only benefits the wealthy. Guys, I think that this was how politicians they was dividing people to not being unity, to not be together. Then when they fight about white and black, but themselves they are developing their economy, they are making money. But now when you see the reality, how white people they are lining, waiting for the government aid, guys, it's so painful. Now, when poor white Americans are realizing that they are the ones trapped in the poverty, struggling to pay bills, lining up for government help, and they can't handle the fact that black communities, after hundreds of years of surviving slavery, you can see how black people they develop themselves because they know the system was a little bit tough for them. So then they say, what can we do? We have to construct ourselves. We have to develop ourselves. That's only the one solution. That's only the one way remain. That's only the things what we can do for the future. So you can see what, right now they are not crying. They are not asking any help because they knew these things will happen since before. Segregation and racism are finding ways to push forward. Some black families have learned how to stretch money, how to hustle, how to build support systems. That doesn't mean life is easy for black people, but it means they are not collapsing the same way poor white American is right now, because build their system since before. They know, like politicians most of the time they're doing different propaganda for their own benefit. But even when you see this scenario does not touch the rich people. Most of the time the white American poor people, they are the ones who are suffering a lot, who are struggling a lot for this time. This moment is a wake-up call. Poor white Americans are feeling what black Americans have been forced to feel for centuries. Economic pain, humiliations, and being ignored by the government, which are so hard, guys. And instead of admitting it, many try to blame black people again, because blaming is easier than facing the truth. Guys, is it the solution just people blaming each other's? Is it gonna bring any change for currently? Or shall we stay together and plan what we can do? Shall we stay together and see what is best for all of us, for everyone? But division still in this struggle, it will bring the things very, very difficult. So this is a time of unity. This is a time for understand each other's. The truth is, poverty doesn't care about race. The economy doesn't care about race. But privilege creates a blind spot. Yeah. Many white Americans thought they were protected from the kind of suffering they believed only happened to black people, because that's how the system was telling them, like white people, white supremacy, whites. But what the reality right now? And now that the protection is gone, the shock is too much to handle, guys. Yeah, you can see on the media here and there how people, they are very shocked, they are very surprised, they are very disappointed because what they believed, it's automatically wrong. So real question is, will poor white Americans finally open their eyes, see that their struggle is connected to the struggle of black Americans? Will they realize that unity is the only way of fight back against the system that kept them poor? Or will they keep blaming, keep deflecting, and keep sinking deeper into the same suffering they once laughed at? That's a good question, guys. That's a good question. I don't know. So, the comment is there, guys. Because here is the reality. Black people are not sitting around waiting for the system to save them. Never. Never and ever. Because they already shape their system. They already construct their system. They know everything. They learned long ago that survival means building your own path. And until poor white Americans accept that truth, they will stay trapped in the very cycle they thought they would never face. Guys, the problem is the system. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. Remember to drop the comments in the comment section. Thank you so much for your subscribe. I see really your help. See you for the next video.